I have the secret to making fretting easy. It's called economy fretting. Check this out. So this is literally the solution for hand fatigue and playing chords on time. This is similar to economy picking, where we are making very efficient movements with our picking hand, but in this case, we're talking about the fretting hand. So we're taking the same mindset of efficiency and applying it directly to fretting.
Most players move their hands way more than they need to, which slows them down and creates a lot of movement, which of course creates some hand fatigue. What's worse is whatever we do in repetition, we get good at. So if you're moving more than you need to and you don't correct it, you're literally further establishing bad habits. But here's the good news. This is easily remedied with a basic observation and a few repetitions of the improved economical fretting movement. And the way of thinking can massively improve your speed and accuracy. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, for example, a lot of times when people are going, say, from like a C chord to an A minor chord, we'll do what most people do, which is lift your fingers up because you're leaving that chord and you're coming to a new chord and you lay your fingers down. And this is a habit that we've established. But if we don't have to move more fingers, we don't have to lift more fingers than necessary, why are we doing that? Now, number one, this is going to take catching this, but check this out. If we take a C chord and we analyze what a C chord is and what an A minor chord is, then we can see that two notes, my first finger and my second finger, don't have to move whatsoever. Going from the C to the A minor. Now, some of you might say, so what? I can easily do that. Well, so can I. That's right. No badge of honor there. But if we're trying to create less movement, right? If we're trying to be more efficient in what it is that we do, we have to observe what it is that we're doing wrong and then fix that. So the first thing is to just observe it. So what that means is taking any two chords and saying, okay, what is common about those two chords? So in the case of C and A minor, there's literally two fingers that don't have to move at all. So my exercise for this to you would be to practice the C, actualize it, see where your fingers are, and then actualize where your fingers are at for that A minor, and do your darndest to not move any finger other than that third finger. You might find that this is very challenging at first because you've established such a habit of not doing this. And in that case, if you do run into this, that's great news because you're gonna fix it now, okay? Going back and forth just between those two chords, just like this, is the thing that's gonna build that new neural path or that new habit, okay, this new good habit. Let's look at another one here. A lot of times when we're going from the G chord to the D chord or the G chord to the D minor chord, we can see that there's this pivot finger right here, this third finger on the third fret of the second string. That note, if we're going from the G to the D, doesn't have to move. Most people lift their fingers up and then form the D chord. Well, think about it. Number one, there's two less things you're doing. You're not lifting that finger up and you're not having to reapply it to find its place. Every little micro movement. You know, people could say that you're just moving from one chord to the next, but there are a lot of little micro movements that are happening in between there. So you have to consider and negotiate every single finger. So moving from the G to the D, just like this, without moving this finger whatsoever, is going to be the habit that you will establish for going from G to D or from G to D minor. Notice my third finger's not moving at all. So this would literally be your exercise, is just going back and forth between those two chords. If that third finger lifts up, it's a bad rep. Do it again. You want to get this repetition down where that finger does not move whatsoever. Same thing with going from the G to the D. Once you can establish that without the strumming, then you can bring in the strumming. But at first, don't use the strumming. Just focus on changing that chord, okay? This will work for G to D, G to D minor. Let's look at another one. Let's look at E minor to B7. And by the way, these are very common chord movements. So these aren't just like random chords I'm throwing at you. These are chords that you're going to see a lot of times. So B7 and E minor will oftentimes accompany each other, or G and D, or G and D minor. In the case of C major, you have a G and a D minor. Or C and A minor. That works for A minor and C major, right? The key of G and the key of C. The next one would be E minor and B7. So think about this E minor, what's common? So really that's the question you want to ask yourself is what's common between what I'm doing now and the next thing that I'm doing? Don't worry about 2 and 3 and 4 steps down the road. Just think about what step are you on now? What's the next step that I'm going to? Because you could do this for riffs and for chords. I'm just showing you chords right now. But we take this E minor chord and we say, okay, the B7. Well, a lot of people, they'll lift that hand up and then they'll form their B7. It makes sense. The mind's thinking about it like it learned it, like this is an E minor chord, this is a B7 chord. But if we go that one step further and go, well, what's the same? Okay, well, this second finger is down on the 2nd fret of the 5th string. It doesn't move for the B7 and it doesn't move for the E minor. So why would I move it? So your habit for this would be to, number one, first observe what it is that doesn't have to move, and in this case here it's that 2nd finger, and then form your next chord. You might have to do a little thinking ahead of time here before you actually make the move, and then you make the move. If this is difficult for you, that's even better. That means that you're going to get more from this. If this isn't difficult at all for you, then chances are you're already doing this, something similar. But most guitar players I run into do not do this. Okay, so here's your E minor, here's your B7. Notice my 2nd finger does not lift up off the fretboard. It's the same each time. So not only do I have to do 2 less things, lift that finger up and then reapply it and make sure it's in the right place, but now I have a pivot. So if you're jamming out on stage, rocking out, you have a pivot or an anchor or something, a touchstone, something, a cornerstone, right? Many different names for it, but something to hold on to that's the same, association. That's how our brains work. So in this case here, you have that finger associated with the E minor chord. It's also associated with that B7 chord. Let's look at another. Let's look at F to C. So one might not think that this is a very common movement, but it is definitely, especially in the key of C. Could also be used in the key of G if we're using that flat 7 chord, which the F would be. Going from C to F, we don't have to shift gears entirely. In fact, I call this the cheating F, but essentially what you're going to do is hold your C chord just like this, move the 2nd finger down 1 string, boom, and apply your pinky right where your 2nd finger came from, the 4th string. So that's literally it. Here's my C chord, here's my F. And notice how slight that is. It's just a slight movement right there, right? Super small. Well, that's how to go from the C to the F. Now, if you just play the 4 middle strings, you're going to get that F chord. Okay? If you want to play a fuller chord, then you'll want to bar the 1st and 2nd strings. But again, we're not moving certain fingers. We're not moving our 3rd finger. We're not moving our 1st finger. The only finger that's moving is our 2nd finger, and we're adding that pinky. And in the case of the bar, we're adding the bar. But again, we have 2 things that are consistent there. And what that's going to do is that's going to keep you from having to move around so much. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how this helps in reducing hand fatigue during long practice sessions or performances. Another thing to be aware of is how hard you're pressing the strings, okay? So if say like 1 through 10, it takes you a 5 or 6 to actually press the strings down to where they make contact with the fret, that's all you need, right? You don't need to be pressing down at a 10 or an 11 or 12. You just need just enough for the string to make contact with the fret, okay? Now, anything more than that, you're wasting energy, you're gonna be more fatigued, and you're most likely gonna put your guitar at a pitch. When interviewing home run hitters, they said, how hard are you hitting the ball? And from 1 to 10, how hard are you hitting? Most of them answered about a 6 or a 7. It had way more to do with where they hit the ball and where the bat made contact with the ball, or where the ball made contact with the bat, and that sweet spot is the thing that made that ball go sailing. So it's not going to sound any better if you're pressing harder, and you're probably getting tired and will be out of tune. That's what I have for you today, my friends. I have several courses for you that are absolutely free to you. My gift to you, check those out in the description below. Friends, just remember, if you want to get good at this, it's a matter of finding out what's common between 2 chords or say 2 licks, and just working out the fingering such that you don't have to move those particular fingers. I promise you that if you do this, it's going to help with a myriad of things that you do in your guitar playing, and it's going to get you thinking this way. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in another video.